Welcome to Watches with Dennis, and today I want to talk about 4 Rolex professional watches that I have found are trending down in pricing. Now, I recently had a video where I explored why the market average sales prices were going down, and I had postulated a few reasons, and I had a lot of people comment and actually suggest a few others I didn't hit on, like the shutdown that's impacting part of China, which is a major luxury market. Also, the funding surges that some people might have seen if they had invested in crypto or possibly NFTs and gotten out of those while they were still high, whereas many of those valuations are now down quite a bit. But this video isn't going to focus on any of that. Instead, I thought, let's go through some real watch examples to see if any are going down, and what better place to start with Rolex, especially because I can basically pick any steel sports model of a Rolex and be able to say it's popular. So it's safe to know that there is some level of demand for essentially any version of a Rolex watch, aside from the Cellini line, probably. So I went ahead and I have grabbed 4. So let's go ahead and tackle these sort of in descending order of market valuation. So we'll start with the most expensive watch and we'll end with the cheapest one of the 4 that I've taken. Now, a few caveats before we get going. The data is what watchcharts.com had provided on set dates for what they list as the market average of a typical private sales venue, not dealer sales. I manually pulled data from watchcharts.com, and I started on February 4th and I ended on May 4th. And what I would do is I just took whatever the valuation was on a date that ended in 4. So February 4th, February 14th, February 24th, and so on. We don't need every single day to understand what's going on here. We just need to know what the baseline trend is. And I felt that gave us enough snapshots in time to have some meaningful value that we could see a trend line with. Another thing is when you see these graphs, you're going to notice that the y-axis is not set to 0. So I need to warn you, I'm not trying to trick you. The reason I've done that, though, is so it's easier to see the bend in the curve. So obviously, when you have a watch that's $40,000 to $50,000, if I were to set that y-axis at 0, it would just be very, very small to be able to try and look. So I'll try and point out, though, just how substantive in terms of raw dollars these all are so that everyone understands and everything's above board. But just FYI, none of these y-axes are at 0. You will see what they're set at. I just need to fully disclose it so that everyone's aware. So let's start with the Rolex Daytona. And I should note all 4 of these Rolex watches I am doing are in production watches. And this is the reference number 116500. And the retail price on this watch is $14,550. So looking at this 3-month period, at the start of February, the market average of these watches was just over $40,000, and it actually climbed quite precipitously for about the next month and a half. So in terms of my data snapshots, the zenith was reached on March 14th, which was just over $49,000 market average for this Daytona. And since then, it has been sliding down. You can see that initially the slide down was very, very gradual, but since then it does look like it's gotten a little bit steeper. But bear in mind, this is still not particularly high in the sense of dollar amount change. So we started February at $40,000. We got up to $49,000. And we're sitting at just under $46,000. My last snapshot is $45,705 from May 4th, 2022. But it has clearly been in decline now for about 6 weeks. Obviously, the Rolex Daytona, very famous watch. It was a watch that was notorious about having to get on a wait list to get well before the current weird times where we had the pandemic and everything else, and all watches all of a sudden got very, very scarce. This was always a watch that was difficult to get. So, and I think that's still clearly reflected in the fact that you have a market average value that is approximately $30,000 more than the retail price of the watch. But it doesn't seem to be as obscenely skewed as it was just a few weeks ago. So let's move down the price chain a little bit to another very popular Rolex. This is the Rolex GMT Master II. The reference is the 126710BLNR. You've probably commonly heard of this as either the Batman or the Batgirl. The name, I believe, is only differentiated based off of whether or not it's a Jubilee bracelet or the Oyster bracelet. So it's the same reference number, no matter which way you go with that. So the retail price of this GMT Master II is $10,550. And as you can see, this trend line, again, fairly similar to what we saw with the Rolex Daytona just a little bit ago. So we started February at just under $22,000 of a market average. It got all the way up to $25,451 as of March 14th, which was also our zenith date from the Daytona. And then since then, it has started a gradual slide downward. I'd say this one has stayed more gradual than what we saw with the Daytona. But again, the dollar amounts are also much, much smaller that we're dealing with here in terms of change. So again, though, very similar to what we saw before, February's starting point is still lower than what the current market average is for the GMT Master II. It's just slipped now from its 25,500 almost top point down to 24,300. So let's move down yet another price point, and let's look at the Rolex Submariner. This is the reference 124060. This is the no date sub, and I picked that one because that's actually the one I'm partial to, though I don't own one. I've never owned a Submariner. But anyway, the retail price of the no date sub is $8,950. And as you can see, we once again have a fairly similar to what we've been seeing before behavior, though this time we have a price point which currently has gotten a lot closer to that low point of February. February still remains the low point. February 4th, 2022, market average was $15,500, and it moved all the way up to $16,621. That was our top point, which yet again, March 14th in terms of my snapshots. Again, the actual specific day may be different. You can go to watchcharts.com if you want to see the exact amounts day by day by day, but I only took certain snapshots again to make my trend lines. So since then, it has been sliding downward, a few $100s, but as of May 4th, 2022, it had fallen to $15,875. It's only roughly $400 more than what it was at the start of February. I just think this one's so much more interesting, to me at least, than the Daytona or the Batman, because we're actually seeing, in terms of raw dollars, it's gotten so much closer to where it was back at the start of February than the other two watches we just looked at have. So I'm really curious if this one's going to continue to go downward and drop below that February level. And of course, that could happen with any of these watches. I'm not forecasting out where they're going to go yet, but this one seems more aggressive than the others. And so I just find it really, really noteworthy. But the strangest one is actually the cheapest one that I had on my list, and that is the Rolex Explorer. This is the reference number 124270. This watch has a retail price of $7,200, and it is by far the most interesting market average graph that I've got out of the four. Looking at the February 4th, 2022 snapshot value of $10,626, the behavior of this watch has been different. It's dipped a couple of times at this point. It dipped before we've seen the big dip that everyone else has been going through, and then it's dipping since that big dip. So the valuation was relatively steady, and then it started to slide towards the end of February and early March. And then as March went on, the value actually started to go up. It sort of dipped down. Start of March was about $10,458. And then it kind of climbed up to just under $10,700. This one actually peaked out on my data on April 4th, not March 14th, like all the other ones. And that was specifically $10,672 as of April 4th. And then since then, it has started to slide. And more recently, it has started to slide a lot. However, what's interesting is the last two data snapshots that I have are lower than that February 4th, 2022 average market price. And so unlike all the other Rolexes we have just looked at, this one is actually on average cheaper now than it was at the start of my examination period. Still about $3,000 more than it would cost to get it retail. And again, as I've had to note with the y-axis, even though this looks very extreme, remember and notice how zoomed in we are. We're talking about an access range of $10,300 to $10,700. So I think from the highest point to the lowest point is about a $250 spread or so. So again, raw dollar amounts, this is not particularly significant, but the behavior pattern of the line graph is consistent with what we've been seeing with all the others, and that is there is a price decline going on with popular watches. My personal assumption is we are not going to see a change in these patterns. I think these prices are still going to fall for the foreseeable future. It's difficult to say. For example, the lockdown in China, and there's such a large luxury watch market that I believe has high interest in Rolex. If and when that opens back up, that might help counteract a lot of this. Maybe it counteracts all of it. I'm not sure. I don't know how much of a percentage they are that they're currently not being able to exploit. You know, they're not able to buy right now. And that's so significant that it's affecting everyone else. Now, on the flip side, with the inflation issues going on and the volatility to the stock market, I think most people are just not going to be this year in as good of a financial position as they were in 2021 and 2020. Now, I think that's going to keep driving these down. And I think that's going to offset even the lockdown China factor. So my guess, and it's just a guess, but my guess is these prices will continue to slide. I don't expect them to fall off a cliff. Most of these slides that we're looking at here on these 4 examples have been pretty gradual, pretty moderate, noticeable, but small percentages. But I just think it's going to keep grinding along like that for a while. But we'll just have to keep looking at the data and see what the future has when we actually get into it. So anyway, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please do give it a like. And if you want to be notified when I have new videos, just click the subscribe button. Have a great day, everybody.